is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
And we are back, another episode of the One Roll Away podcast here on KC Sports Network, brought to you by our wonderful friends at Emprise Bank. Jordan Foote here, Josh Keiser, Joe Penfield. Guys, the Kansas City Royals are, by the time folks are listening to this, done with the 2024 MLB draft. We are going to share our thoughts on day 2 of the draft, night 2, afternoon 2, and then do a mailbag episode and answer some questions from the awesome listeners who chimed in on the KCSN Discord community, on Twitter. We might even have a YouTube one in there somewhere. I'll have to look back through, but extremely excited for this episode, and we'll start bottom box on the video. Josh, how's it going, man?
Doing well. It's been a fast couple of weeks to try to keep up with everything going on that is Royals baseball, but we're here. We're going to take a break after this and get a few days off to kind of recalibrate things, but we're going to be back in the saddle next week for you all. Joel, how is your day going?
I'm doing well, man. Hanging in there. We're not doing anything live this time. Obviously, there's no game, and we don't want to miss the All-Star game tonight. So we appreciate everybody listening and sending in questions. This is going to be a real fun episode.
100%. And let's kind of just jump into that. I think we have a couple transactions. The Walter Pennington 27th man in St. Louis was kind of expected, I think, with how quickly he was up and down. We talked about Colin Selby in that era last week. He ended up getting traded to Baltimore for cash instead of just outright released by the team. Hunter Harvey acquired for the number 39 pick, and Caden Wallace talked about that on draft night. Really fun episode on Sunday. That was a blast reacting to the pick live. Then Nick Anderson DFA'd, which, not a huge surprise, but he also wasn't bad, just kind of scuffling a little bit this season. But again, you need 40-man space. You kind of have to make concessions there. So Home Run Derby, All-Star game coming up, or I guess done now that the podcast is out. All-Star week festivities coming up. Josh, you think that the rules this year are good, and that's kind of your takeaway from it. It was fun. That's just my one-word summary for it, is fun.
Everything before and after the national anthem was a lot of fun, very good quality, but that national anthem was legendary, very bad. I thought something was legitimately wrong with her. I don't know anything about her. Apparently she's a country star, and that was brutal. But back to the Home Run Derby itself was awesome. Like, I had my big time doubts, especially when they were talking about the rules. It seemed like there was way too many rules. It feels like when you're playing a new board game or something, you're like, just let me play and I'll figure this out as we go. And then I really started to grow to appreciate, the rules for what they were. They maintained a balance of strategy and athleticism. They had a good pace, but built up the drama. They pushed players without killing them. So I think they walked that line really, really well. Some great moments. Obviously, we're a little bit biased because Bobby Witt Jr. did so well. It came up, just a couple of feet short of creating even more drama, which would have been awesome. But really showed out at the Derby. A lot of the contestants none of them really fell flat on their face. All of them kind of came out and did really well. So in all, just a good event with some great rules that they brought in for the first time this year. So really enjoyed that Home Run Derby for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there was another reason, right, Joel, to join the Home Run Derby, because one guy made it pretty far.
Yeah, but Bobby obviously made it to the finals, came up, about maybe 2 or 3 feet short of tying, and possibly, if he hit the home run there to tie, he was absolutely hitting a home run on the next pitch. Yeah. Like, I'm really convinced of that. It wasn't going to a swing off. Despite his brother-in-law sabotaging him about 80% of the time with some hideaway cutters and cutters down and in that he swinging at. I'm like, wow, my God, man, just don't BP. We're not trying to get him out here. We don't need to have any sort of family rivalry here. Things might make... If Bobby didn't get out of the first round, Thanksgiving was going to be real awkward. But what we've seen from the Home Run Derby in years past, especially when young players and guys that are trying to become superstars do the Derby, even if they don't win, and they put on an amazing performance, it can really shoot a guy into superstardom. We saw with Vlad Jr. when he was in the Derby in 2019. Everyone was like, man, he only has like 8 home runs. Why is he in this thing? And then he hit 60-something. And had an unbelievable performance. I was like, oh, that's why he was in there. And it kind of shot him into, even though he was a top prospect, he kind of underwhelmed to that point, made him that guy. Pete Alonso kind of had a similar trajectory, at the beginning there. He's a bum now, but it's fine. Julio Rodriguez, back-to-back years in the home run derby, electric performances. Even if he didn't win either one, it like those types of moments, kind of shoot a guy into that. Bobby Witt Jr. is an undeniable superstar at this point. Like he has been one of the best players in baseball all year. Can't imagine there are too many casual fans that watch this event that are watching Royals games day in, day out. They know the name. But then Bobby goes out and leads the pack in home runs total for the entire derby with 50, hit some moonshots, and was in it till the very end, and was a betting favorite there pretty much from the second round on. He's an undeniable superstar, and if he goes out tonight and hits a double in the gap, or hits a what would be a routine single and turns it into a double, or a ball hit down the line for a triple, or he goes deep, people are going to be thinking about Bobby Witt Jr. a lot differently, and going to be thinking about him a lot more than we would just in Kansas City. He becomes that guy that we all know that he is. So it is really cool to see him on that stage. Was just like, this is fun. This is awesome. I'm not trying to do too much. I just want to go out and have a good time. And he did that, and he still nearly won the damn thing. So really, really awesome.
Yeah, no, it was super impressive. The Royals are going to need every bit of contribution they're going to get from Bobby Witt Jr. after the break. 3-2 since we last recorded, won 3 in a row and then lost 2 in a row heading into the break. My weekly takeaway, I just looked back because I remembered everyone says, the Royals do really good the last few weeks of the season, and then when it doesn't matter, they're out of it, blah, blah, blah. If they actually can do what they've done in the second half of the seasons, they're going to position themselves for a playoff spot. So I went back, 2023, they obviously lost 106 games. First half, 26-65, which is just downright horrible. Second half, 30-41. That's a 13.7% increase. The year before, 2.3% increase. 2021, they got a lot better, played above 500 ball in the second half. COVID year, it's kind of hard to distinguish that, but in the month of September, they played 480 ball, which, is a lot better than they ended up. And then 2019, they had an 8% difference after the break. So I think if they can just play decent to slightly better ball than what they're doing now, if they played 555 ball in the second half, 600 ball, something like that, 58%, like they can just get a little bit better and broaden that gap from where they're at right now. Because they're, 1.5 bad weeks away from being back at square one at 500. Then you're like, okay, where do they go from here? If they can get hot and stay hot, build that pad a little bit, and then finish up seasons the way they have, then I think that, Josh, they have a pretty good chance to make a run.
And they've got a great start off in the second half. They're against the White Sox at home, then the D-backs at home, then their Cubs at home, then they go to the White Sox, then to Detroit, and then at home against Boston and then St. Louis. So we're talking about the second half start through August 10th, and you got a lot of winnable games against a lot of winnable teams, whereas guys like Boston have a really tough teams like Boston have really tough schedules coming out. Teams like Cleveland has kind of a rough start to start out. So there are some chances and some opportunities, especially there at the home stretch, to take some games and kind of get that momentum going. And it started out the second half really, really well. So we could be here at dance around the trade deadline. If they rip off a good amount of those games, we could be in a position where they are truly buying, and then it's time to go all in. So we'll probably address that here in this mailbag questions, I think, coming up. So revisit those the second half through there. So that's where I'm at.
They have a chance to get that really nice start, but we also said that when they got through that stretch,
100%.
Tough teams, and they fell on their face there for about a week and a half when they were playing.
These teams are better.
Beat. So maybe the All-Star break helps everybody reset rather than going directly from playing the Dodgers and the Padres and the Yankees and all these teams to then go right into the Angels and the A's. And so maybe this helps reset things just a little bit, and they come out firing. They're playing the White Sox. The White Sox are a disaster. They're going to be selling. They know they're selling, so who knows at this point, but I feel optimistic that the All-Star break came at the perfect time for this team. And if they come out hot and they win this series against they potentially sweep the series against the White Sox, are 10 over, right before the All-Star break. So it changes the math on how they buy and who they buy.
Yep, absolutely. There's nothing better than a few days off and an opportunity to add some new talent to the organization, which is exactly what they did. We covered the Jack Caglione pick on Sunday night in the opening round of the draft. I did want to open the floor here in a second to some draft coverage and some thoughts on rounds 2 through 10, and then we're going to jump into the mailbag. But we do have to hit a quick break, so we're going to do that, then we'll be right back.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Huge shout out to anybody tuning in on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, however you like your podcasts and get your podcasts. Very grateful for that support, and it shows up in a big way on this pod. We're going to hit a mailbag in the second half, but did kind of want to go around the horn here and discuss the Kansas City Royals draft that they've had so far. We'll share probably next week thoughts on the final part of the draft, but we're going to get to rounds 3 through 10 and really 2 through 10. Kicking it off with David Shields, and that was just a interesting pick, I think, for them. I really didn't think that he fits necessarily what the Royals have gone for too much in the past. I know that there's one particular player that everyone kind of clung to when that pick was announced that we won't mention quite yet for reasons.
Joel's got a hot take about that.
Yes. I like the bet. Mount, just really 17 years old, turns 18 in September. Mount Lebanon standout. Four-seam fastball sits in the low 90s, can hit 94, 95 as needed. Again, we went over his profile. Good slider, solid changeup, rumors of a curveball eventually being a thing. My take on it, just a fun bet on a very young but very high upside arm. It's not something that necessarily will break the Royals draft class or the organizational future. I think that what they did afterwards, going for so many proven college arms with years of experience, kind of helps offset this to where, hey, Joel, if he doesn't pan out, then you have a little bit of a padding with some of the other guys you got.
Yeah, this is a very intriguing pick. This is something that Brian Bridges did a lot when he was with Atlanta, drafting. He loves drafting pitchers, as you can tell. That 8 of their first 10 picks were 8.5, technically, of their first 10 picks were pitchers. The difference in the thing that intrigues me about David Shields, even though I'm not a huge fan of taking prep arms early, he has really solid command and control early. And for a 17-year-old to have that with his kind of stuff is very, very impressive. That's where you can delineate from the Frank Mazzucato pick, which was all projection at every level. Because he didn't throw particularly hard. He was a young guy, had command issues, but had good stuff, and you hope that he can put it all together. This guy already has the command, and then one of the easiest things you can do for guys now at this point is add velocity and pitch design. So if they need to tweak some things, at least he's going to be around the strike zone. So it makes the projection and the possibility of him becoming a guy, in the next few years a lot more palatable, because the clay isn't as raw as a Frank Mazzucato was when the Royals drafted him a few years ago. I like and by the way, his fastball, they say he's up to 94, 95. Brian Bridges said he was up to 95 when they saw him. He's also 17 years old, and Frank Mazzucato struggling to throw 90 in low A or in high A. So I don't know. The breaking ball's intriguing. It's not Frank Mazzucato curveball good, but he's got like a 2-plane slider. Our buddy Alex Duvall said it almost looks like Bumgarner, the way that he can kind of throw that almost like a cutter slider kind of at the top of the zone, and then a big, like, kind of sweeping breaking slider at the bottom. Not necessarily a curveball, but just a kind of a 2-plane pitch. It's interesting. I do like the guy, and I'm curious how they handle him.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a very interesting pick. A lot of raw clay to deal with, a lot of athleticism to go off with. And in his projections, or his rankings across the board here are very interesting, because you have places like Keith Law had him at 40, and MLB Pipeline had him at 41. And you had like Baseball America had him at 60, and Prospects Live at 70, and Kylie McDaniel at 75. So it is very a quite big range of outcomes that we could see for David Shields. But it is an interesting tool set, like you guys mentioned. Like the clay is there, the tools are there, the upside is there, as well as the command being still pretty good and effective. that's all a pretty good recipe for a guy that I'd bet on, especially in the second round, especially as a 17-year-old. I like that. I like all of that. So I was a big fan of David Shields as the pick, and very interested to see where he ends up and down his career.
Let's lump the next two guys, Drew Beam from Tennessee and LP Langevin from Louisiana Lafayette. And the next two at 376 and 4105. I think that Beam is your prototypical kind of standard mid-90s fastball, decent changeup, curve cutter, years of experience, played at Tennessee, very tried and true type of, hey, this is again, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. Like this guy, we are very confident can get through the system, take a little bit less time than some other guys, have the experience, have the backing. You're not projecting as much. And then Langevin, 6'2", 225, 106 strikeouts, and just 62 and 2/3 innings this season, primarily in relief. So Bridges, and I think it was Annie's article, said that he had a disappearing fastball and a pretty good changeup. Like he singled out those two pitches, absolutely loved the analytics with the fastball. I'm intrigued. I think that is the player development play and kind of a mix of, okay, now we're taking one that we're confident in the development of himself and what he's already done. And then Langevin, we can take what he's done and we can enhance it with some of the resources, Joel, that they haven't previously kind of been exposed to.
For sure. Drew Beam, it feels like when they took Mason Barnett a couple of years ago. Like, at a minimum, the dude is going to be at worst a reliever, at best a 4 or 5 starter in the big leagues. Like, the stuff is there. Everything is league average, maybe slightly above. There's nothing flashy and awesome, but the stuff is there for him to just get there. And I think that's probably what we'll see with him being more than likely a fast mover. Langevin could be in the big league bullpen like next year. That fastball and the metrics on it are wild. And it's 92 to 96, and he was going like multi-inning relief, at stretches for the Raging Cajuns. You just turn him into a one-inning guy and let the fastball get up into the upper nines with his metrics, could be really, really special. With the arm angle, it's not exactly the same, but it feels like Paul Sewald, like that kind of high 3/4, he hides it really well, and it just gets on you. It's almost like an invisible. Like you don't quite see it. You don't pick it up, even if it's in the low nines. So that's a guy that I really like. And if they wanted to go and take a fast track reliever like a Tyson Neighbors, like I talked about, Langevin can absolutely be that guy.
Yep. AJ Causey, 5'1", Tanner Jones from Texas A&M, 6'1", This is where you get to the differentiating results. Like Jones, 6.33 ERA this past season. You're getting him in the 6th round. You're taking, I think, a candidate to start, but probably a reliever. And then AJ Causey from Tennessee, another tried and true experienced arm, 125 strikeouts in 91 innings this year. Need to see how his fastball plays, I think, because it's a low 90s offering that routinely will sit, 89, 90, 91. It's not even on the upper end of that spectrum, but man, really good changeup, pretty decent slider. I think that now you're just getting into the deep cuts of the draft class, and once you pass those first 3 or 4 rounds, guys, like not necessarily expecting anything from them, but the fact that they have guys that have, several innings under their belt and are experienced, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it absolutely helps. The guy that in the later rounds intrigued me the most was Dennis Kalarin from Northeastern, 7th round pick, just because the dude gets the fastball up to 100. Now, it is a very sad fastball, at least from the scouting reports that I was reading. Like, it's hard, like he throws it hard, but it doesn't spin very well. It's just a hard fastball. If they can tweak the grip a little bit and work with in pitch design to give him a little more spin and carry at the top of the zone, that could be another guy like Langevin that can move through the system quick because he throws that hard and it gives you another bullpen arm.
Yep. Josh, any thoughts on Nick Conti, 8227, Canyon Brown, who is described as a defense-first catcher, not really a slugger, although he had a 906 OPS this year, or Nate Ackenhausen from LSU to round things out?
No, I don't have any thoughts on any of those guys. They got some great names. That's about all I got for you. I got a thought about the whole class in general so far. Yes. Joel, you kind of mentioned that 8 out of 10 of them are pitchers, which is interesting, and all of them, well, most of them are college pitchers as well. A lot of them in a situation where they probably are signing and they probably are underslotting. So I'm interested to see both what Cags and then Shields. There's been some conflicting reports about what he is signable at. So curious to see what the number is on that. And then obviously we start with the 11th round today where things start getting a little bit squirrely about picking up who might sign for a little bit more than the draft slot to be able to intrigue them a little bit further in. It's like Benny Pasquantino was an 11th round pick. So I wonder if they pick up some names through this way, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. But as of right now, they only have like 3 guys. The first 3 picks are the only guys that were in the top 100 lists or even like the top 200 lists. I mean, Pipeline had Langevin at 230, Kazi at 242, and Colleran was 207. So I'm not sure what's left in there. What? Yes. Underslots. That's what I'm saying. Are they pulling? Are they kind of keeping the money back to make some moves here in this third day? Or are Cags and Shields just expected to have to command a little bit more money? So we're going to see how that all falls, and it kind of is pretty telling what happens in day 3.
Yep. We're going to cover day 3 next week on our Tuesday podcast. I'm getting this one knocked out the mailbag a little bit earlier before or as that's kicking off. Guys, again, thank you before we even start for mailbag stuff. We got more questions than I expected. You guys are the best for tuning in. Again, we had great engagement on the draft show on Wednesday, little live stream there. Social interaction has been awesome. So it takes, a village to keep growing the channel and keep doing all that stuff. So thank you for that. Good reviews, bad reviews, good comments, bad comments, good mailbag questions, everything alike. So to kick things off, Josh IQ on Twitter, how much do you think our surprising season is due to luck, and how much of it is just a change in process or development? With our system being very low on talent, how do they sustain this level of success as they won't be trying to obtain prospects at the deadline? Love the show, Josh. Thank you so much. Let's go back to Josh here on this show. And what do you think about that?
I'm going to take the first question here about being lucky. According to Baseball Reference, they're actually the 6th unluckiest team according to the Pathetic win-loss record. They're 13-13 in one-run games. They're one of the lowest on pitchers getting calls and batters getting calls. So I would argue that they're one of the most unlucky teams in the Major League Baseball right now for a lot of ways. But in the spirit of the question, yeah, it seems like a lot of fans are skittish just because of the stark difference between last year and this year. And I think they did a lot of underachieving, especially in the first half last season. And we saw a little bit more success there. The second half season, the record was better. And so I think we are just getting that on a larger sample size, as well as playing off the back of the starting rotation, which I talked about last week as being the big reason why the Royals are in this situation. Adding Seth Lugo, adding Micah Wacha, letting them bring veteran leadership on the back of Cole Reagans being a potential Cy Young guy, on top of Singer and Marsh taking steps in their progression. So I think that is actually a big reason why this season is so much different than last season. So I'm not saying that there is any luck involved here. I think it's absolutely, we can trust in the process and the development of both the culture, both the development process, both coaching, the management, all around. I feel like there's a big step forward that was taken this year. So it's time to believe.
Joel, what do you think about the last part about how do they keep that going?
Find ways to win and improve this roster. And that's where the trade deadline comes in. And I know we'll talk about that in other questions, but I think that's the bottom line. What they currently have, the bones of the team, is good enough to continue to win games and flirt with the playoffs. But if they improve the roster, raise the floor of it, just even a little bit without overpaying or depleting the farm system, this is the team that absolutely can play into October. It's that, I think they're that close. I don't believe this is an overachieving, bad team. We've seen those before, but I don't think that's where the Royals are at. I think they've shown that to this point.
Yep. You guys took the words out of my mouth there, so hopefully I'll be able to chime in on another really good one from Drew on Twitter. John Sherman mentioned the possibility of taking on some bad contracts to gain some younger talent and or other help. What are some contracts the Royals could potentially target, and what would the return likely be to do so? Josh, I know you had, you said 4 or 5 bad contracts on your list?
Yeah, I've got four bad contracts that I think are on bad teams that might look to offload for whatever reason, and then 4 that are bad contracts that are still probably tradable before the offseason. So the main ones here I've got, maybe the worst contract in baseball is Anthony Rendon. He's still got 2.5 years left, $96.2 million left on that contract. He's got 75 WRC plus with average defense at third base. And considering the situations, I don't think that their farm they're not in a situation to sell off prospects to get rid of Anthony Rendon. I think they have to eat that contract for the life of it, and they're just stuck with it. So they're probably not going to throw in like a Taylor Ward or a Luis Rengifo to dilute those hauls in order to offload that contract. But there's also a possibility to include those guys potentially too. Kyle Hendricks from the Cubs, 34 years old, half a year and almost just probably around $8 million left on his contract, a 5.12 FIP. I think that's a possibility there maybe you throw in like a lottery ticket rookie arm, or maybe even a lower prospect, and get like a BJ Murray, a 45 guy out of AAA, third base, first base type of hitter. So maybe that's a possibility, but that's probably where you're talking about drafting. Now, George Springer for Toronto, 2.5 years, $60 million, just under average on both the plate and the defense and right field. Let's say you throw in Yusei Kikuchi, who also is pretty expensive on an expiring contract, and then maybe throw in a 45 rating like, I don't know, Josh Kasevich. Let's see if that would be something there, a 45 rating that's in AA ball. And then the one that I keep trying to figure out, my great white buffalo, Nolan Arenado for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Woo!
It is a situation where it's 3.5 years, $64 million in salary, and it's $45 million in deferred money until 2041. So there would have to figure out some things on that contract and also have motivation to eat that much money. And I think that's where we kind of start to end it. They obviously want to build off of him when they extended him. So it is a very big contract to figure out. But, I mean, they've got Nolan Gorman there. Maybe they want to make him the everyday third baseman and see what they can get for Arenado. Maybe you can throw in some guys and kind of rebuild a farm system off of that. But it is definitely interesting to be able to think about maybe Arenado in a Kansas City Royals jersey. That'd be great.
I fear he might be cooked.
He might be cooked. Yeah. 101 WRC plus right now.
And the Mets
are lately. Bad. Yeah. Are they bad? Yeah.
I looked and looked and looked and looked again. Joey Gallo has an $8 million option next year.
Gross.
I did some disgusting work on this, man. I was going through the depths of hell to find contracts. Tyler Anderson is like 1 billion years old.
Yep.
$13 million next year, 2.97 ERA, but a 4.6 FIP. So there's a huge discrepancy there. Then Taylor Rogers on the Giants, $12 million next year, 2.15 ERA, but a 3.56 FIP. Just over, I think it's like 0.2 F WAR this year in the bullpen. That could be like some extra help and also absorb a little bit of deals. I didn't take like the absolute, this guy's making $1 bazillion, like the Royals should eat that up. I took the route of, okay, this team probably doesn't want this guy next year. Let's see if you could pick up literally anything for them. And is there any juice to squeeze? Now, I think Anderson, maybe, probably not. Rogers, I think, possibly. Gallo, I don't think he has much to offer for anybody. So,
yeah, I didn't have anybody else. George Springer was the one I thought about, but I also kind of had the same fear that I do with Nolan Arenado. Like, if you look at the track record, he's in a very hitter-friendly division and ballpark, and his average and slug and weighted runs created plus have gone down every year, and home run total gone down every year. So he might be trending in that direction. I don't want to take on that money if I'm not going to get the production that I think. And he'd be moving to a ballpark that's probably not conducive to hitting, regaining that power. I know that the ballpark plays a little bit smaller during the summer, but I don't know, man. I'm just not going to, I wouldn't risk it. And I think the sentiment of it makes more of what Sherman is saying, makes more sense than actually taking on some of these contracts.
Which I appreciate. I mean, that's not something.
Yeah, it's such a welcome thing. The fact that they were willing to do that. But it doesn't mean that you have to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I got one more realistic name. It kind of borders it kind of toes the line between, production versus a bad contract. That's Mark Canha for Detroit. Half season control, $5 million. He's a 96 WRC plus, okay defense in left field, right field, and first base, which kind of checks back all the boxes of the corner outfield and potentially the infield there at first base. And Marcana is a guy that the Royals were linked to in the offseason as a trade target. So I know they have interest in him. His on-base skills are undefeated. So it's a possibility that they could go target Marcana for Detroit and see if they can add him to this lineup.
Yep. Kyle Henning, who's the bullpen piece you'd like to see added, and what do you think it would cost? My personal speculation here, they got Hunter Harvey. That's good enough. I think they don't need to go get another piece. Now, if they did, billions of options that we could ramble on all day, but I think like the key bullpen addition, I was expecting one of them. Some people wanted two. I always thought they'd get one guy, and I think they got a guy that's pretty good.
The one guy I do like, and I don't know if this team is going to sell. I still think that they probably will because they're around 500, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make it in the wild card, is Paul Sewald from the Diamondbacks. That's a proven veteran guy that's closed out high leverage games for both the Mariners and the Diamondbacks the last few years. It wouldn't necessarily solve the velocity problem, but it's a good fastball and a guy that can get swing and miss at 90, 92 miles an hour. And he could walk in and be your closer without much question. That would be someone I would go after, and probably wouldn't cost a ton. Like maybe a 1-for-1 swap with like Champlain or something like that, because it's a half-year rental. I don't think you would have to give up a ton for him. There's money involved because he's around like $7.5 million. So you prorate that a little bit, they would probably have to kick in a little.
I'm going to go a little bit different. I'm going to say Walter Pennington, and the cost is Will Smith, and leave it at that.
That's a good one.
I dig it. Brady Vaughn. Brady's been chiming in with some really good stuff in the comments and on Twitter. What's the best package of players you'd be willing to deal to upgrade the team at the deadline? Want to know a general threshold you guys are or aren't willing to cross at the deadline. I would move Maikel Garcia. I would move MJ Melendez. I think I would move Brady Singer still. I'm not totally sold on what he's been cooking, but more sold than I was before the year. I would move any prospect, not name, obviously, Jack Caglione or Gavin Cross or Blake Mitchell, I think. And really, those two, like, if I got a crazy offer, I'd have to at least listen. But I'd move a lot of people for the right package. Now, would I actively shop all of those guys, like get them all out of here? No. But again, in an ideal world to improve the team, if I'm JJ Piccolo, there's a very small list of players that I think have proven that they are untouchable.
Yeah, I think Blake Mitchell's my only untouchable. I would probably say the same group: Maikel, MJ, Fermin. I'd probably even throw on that list, but the only guy I'm probably not touching as far as like a trade asset is probably Blake Mitchell at this point. Even Gavin Cross, I would probably even listen to him.
I think it just depends on whether we're talking about a deadline move or a move this offseason. Because if it's at the trade deadline, like Mason Barnett might be the top guy that I'd be willing to move off of, because I think he at least has some intrigue from teams. But I wouldn't do too much at this deadline. Now, if you want to talk this offseason, and I think Cags, Blake Mitchell, Gavin Cross, that might be it. I'd listen on just about anybody else.
Yep, I'm with you. Mike Denny on the Discord, which Royals player would you trust to babysit your child? I think Salvador Perez is the very obvious answer. Like the perfect balance of fun, but also like the fatherly instinct of like being able to take care of kids and make sure they stay out of trouble.
Yep. I had Nick Lofton vibes. He's a great dad. He seems like he's still youngish to keep up with the kids. That's where she kind of has the advantage on Salvi. So I went thick Lofton, but Salvi's right there too.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, he's already the fun uncle when you look at like his brother. He's got a bunch of nieces and nephews from his, from his older siblings. So I'd go. I think he would definitely. It would be the fun uncle vibes. Like he would come home hyped up on Mountain Dew and whatever else, and then he just goes, "Here, we had a good time."
Yeah, I can't believe this is a question. This one's targeted directly at me. Score 99 season stand on Discord. Let's say you drop a Bloody Mary on your pants, which I did at the KCSN golf tournament 2 years ago. Which Royals player is not roasting you? I think Salvador Perez, again, he'd be like, it's okay, guy. Like, let's just move on. Like, it's fine. Basically like how Josh was that year. Because Joel thought it was funny as shit. And you and Matt made fun of me. I can't believe we spent more than 5 seconds on this question.
Well, I've got this overthought. I've overthought this way too much. I think the obvious answer to me is Bobby Witt Jr. Like, I think he's the guy he'll come and say, hey, you need some help cleaning up, and you got a towel in. So you're never quite sure if he's being helpful or he's roasting. Yeah. So you just assume that it's being helpful. So I'd go with Bobby Witt on that one.
Joel?
Yeah, I kind of fall along the same thing because maybe Alec Marsh. He's kind of a quiet, unassuming dude. Like, he probably wouldn't say much. He may chuckle, but he's not going to like outwardly get you. Now, who would roast you the hardest?
Vinny.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
100%.
Like with a bullet, it's Vinny Pasquantino.
Or I think Will Smith, Hunter Renfrow would probably give it to you well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Lee 87. This one was tough, but I looked at the roster and I still couldn't come up with any answers looks wise. If you had to choose a Royals player that closely resembles us, who would they be? Personality, mentality, or physical looks? I don't think any of us look like anyone on the team, but I think the vibes. I still couldn't really think of anybody. Like, I don't know. Maybe Josh or you guys have a good answer.
Oh, I went.
I thought long and hard.
I had a really hard time with this one.
Joel, I got you as Seth Lugo. I think you're super smart and has confidence to put everyone that comes up against him under the table. So I'm going with Seth Lugo on that front. Jordan, I'm saying Vinny, because you set the tone of this show. You drive the bus, and I think that's what Vinny kind of plays his role on this team. So mine was like vibes of the role on the show, and I think I nailed it, to be honest with you.
I like so you'd be Salvador Perez, the captain, the experienced captain, vibes-based. Everyone likes them. Well, I wasn't going to come out and say it. He's not the only old catcher on the team. They do have Freddie Fermin, who is older, and Arrow on Discord said, would it be worth it to keep him? Would whatever they got back for him in a trade be a net positive for the team? I think he's worth to keep, but I think he's even more worth to trade right now. And that's not anything against him, but backup catchers with a 109 WRC plus don't grow on trees. Also, he's 29 and has a 341 BABIP, and I think everyone would agree Freddie Fermin has been good, but like long term, he's not this caliber of a player. Like, he's just a really good backup catcher, not a everyday starting caliber, championship level piece in a lineup. So I would trade Freddie Fermin and probably get it going. Do you guys agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
100% nailed it.
Okay, Corey Peter, this is a funny one. Did Cole Reagan sleep with the New York replay official's wife or something? There's got to be some conspiracy there, right?
It's so weird. Like, for it to happen back-to-back, or basically back-to-back games that he starts, that he gets screwed on a home run that shouldn't have been a home run is insane to me. And the fact, and like, this is where I credit Matt Couturier for being a better man than me, because I would have come unglued in Colorado if it happened to me, if it happened again. Unbelievably incompetent from Major League Baseball.
Yep. Wild.
Christian Gumminger. Yes. Christian Gumminger, is the season already a success? If not, what is a realistic second half of the year that would make it a success? Josh, what do you think?
I think it's not a success yet. I think it's easy to say that they exceeded expectations, but in order to call it a success, they have to take the next step in their development, maintain this, show everybody that this wasn't a fluke, and to keep going. So a realistic second half of the season, if they are maintaining 500, I think at this point we would call this a raving success. So they could take a little step back as far as the record goes, in my opinion, just to call this season an overall success, which gives them a little bit of leeway in the second. But I will be disappointed if they're not playing, they're not in the mix there in late August when you get there.
Joel, I agree with him.
Yeah, for it to be a success to me, it's 500 or better at this point.
Yeah. I'm with that. I think tough decisions to make on some players in the offseason. They knew that was going to happen. Vastly improved record. They don't have to make the playoffs for this year to be a success. Lee 87 again. Have any of you, but mainly Josh, penciled out a perfect new Kauffman Stadium design? I know you have, Josh.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about in the draft show. I want those right field fences moved in because the big power for these guys are coming from the left side of the plate. So give me some pull power, giving me some 60 home run seasons and those stupid right field short porches. I'm kind of interested in the polo ground dimensions. If anybody knows the polo ground,
so weird,
insane.
Where it's like, what is it, 230 to the corner?
Yeah,
it's like 570 to center field wall or something like that. That'd be very interesting, and it would exaggerate the ridiculousness of there's not a uniform position or uniform dimensions in baseball. So, and as long as the
home run record with inside the park home runs,
100%. Yeah. And the fountains need to be flowing with Boulevard beer. That's the other part of that. Make it a fun fountain.
Yeah, I'd be drinking from the fountain.
Fountain dad here.
Take the Frank and Israel Ramirez on Twitter, both kind of similar questions. How quickly can Cags make it to the majors? And then do you think it's possible for Jack Caglione to be a September call-up? I think we're all in agreement that we're thinking 2026, right? Yes. Midway 2026, perhaps?
That's the earliest for me. I think I'd say 2027 is more realistic.
If they continue with the two-way thing, it'll be 2027. If they just drop the pitching thing, which I think eventually they will, it could be as early as opening day 26 to me. Whew, because I do think he's going to hit enough and he's going to hit for enough power that it makes a lot of sense. Like, if you think about, I was talking to our buddy Jared Perkins, said he was talking to scouts and stuff. They look at Cags like Wyatt Langford. Like, the plate coverage and the batted ball stuff is so nutty that it's going to work almost immediately.
Good God.
This is a big one. Ed Hilinski on Twitter, what's the best heat level to eat chicken wings? Suicide, hot, medium, or mild? And do you prefer ranch or creamy blue cheese on the side? Josh, what's your answer?
Hot boy summer. I'm not trying to ruin my day with the suicide, but I am trying to test my manhood a little bit with that hot sauce. So give me that. And used to be a big ranch guy, but I have converted to blue cheese. I have a truther of the blue cheese movement. So give me a hot sauce with the blue cheese, and let's go.
Joel?
I do medium because I'm a coward, and ranch because blue cheese.
Medium ranch. Medium ranch for the win. Getting us out of here, Jason Sutphin. I hope I pronounced that right. It could be Sutphin. Jason, I'm so sorry.
Sutphin. He's one of them.
Okay. Gotcha. Jason Sutphin on Twitter. After trading Wallace and the comp pick, is it wise for us to trade more prospects for only a possible playoff run or go with what we have? I think you can't give up a bunch more prospects. You can't run that well completely dry I'm all for the bites of the apple philosophy, but I'm kind of just standing pat now with that.
Yeah, there's a few guys I'd be willing to give up, but not much more.
Yeah, I think you can marginally improve the roster by doing that. So I think there is some trades to be made, but they're not going to be big ones.
Yep. Well, guys, we made it through. Thank you again to everybody who dropped questions in the Discord, on Twitter, YouTube, reached out to us. Again, thank you for tuning in. However you tuned in, Apple, Spotify, YouTube after the fact. Followed the draft coverage, followed this week. We will be back for the second half of the Royals season to cover everything that's going on. They have quite a bit to play for this season and long term. So until then, thanks again. We'll talk next time. Take care.